All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Sports Casual. My name is Jack Paisley, and welcome back. So this is just after the Monday Night Football between the Cowboys and the Bengals has concluded, and the Bengals get the big time win, 27-20 over the Cowboys. And I have two main takeaways from this game. One, Jamar Chase is going to make a lot of money either this offseason or next offseason. And if the Bengals let him go, they're stupid. He had another great game. Like he's been playing like one of the top two receivers in the league this year, and it's probably not number two. That he had the game winner at the end, broke it wide open, and then obviously the commentary was talking about him and the young kid that was there from I believe Make a Wish that he got the first touchdown for and did the kids dance for him, so, which is always great to see. Love seeing all those big time athletes giving back at the end of the day. But man's gonna make a lot of fucking money at the end of this year. And Joe Burrow's really good at football. And together, like those guys, if they ever leave each other, it's going to be a little bit of a disappointing thing. It's going to be a little bit like Devontae and Aaron when they left each other. It just doesn't feel right, you know. It doesn't hit the giblets the same way. And then takeaway number two: Cowboys fans are delusional, and that's because of Jerry Jones. And he has made it incredibly fun to cheer against his team. Not because you want to see the team themselves lose, because you want to see the devastation out of a Cowboys fan. There's, I mean, look at like Stephen A. He made a living, like he's most known for his hatred of the Cowboys. Obviously, a great reporter and all that, but everybody wants to hear his take on the Cowboys, and that's because of Jerry Jones, because they can never own that they'll be okay this year, kind of thing. Like we need some stuff to come along to have a good year this year. We'll be okay. And they can never do that. And like even last week, you know, you got guys on their team being like, "We're the best team. We're coming. We're gonna push for the playoffs and the Super Bowl." And it just wasn't gonna happen. Like obviously, the guys in the locker room, you have to say that to each other until you were statistically out of the running. So like I don't hate the players saying that. That was Micah Parsons that said it. I don't hate it. I get it. Like that's your job. That's like you wouldn't want your guys coming out before you're out of the running being like we suck, which on the contrary, Joe Burrow actually has done several times. So, granted, the Bengals are the best terrible team that in football. They can literally outscore anybody on any given day just because of how good their quarterback is, and then they have some solid receivers, and then this running back has come out of nowhere. Like who saw this guy coming? Like no one drafted him at the beginning of the year purposefully on fantasy. Like he's the kind of guy that you are like, oh, I guess I'll take this Cincinnati running back. Like I don't really know him. Like hopefully, I think he might be the starter. That's who their running back is, and he is balling out right now. Um, yeah, they're gonna have a confusing offseason. A lot of people have talked about letting Zach Taylor go, and um, I'm not sure if I would. Like that offense is so explosive at this point that I don't know if I'm willing to risk messing that up to bring in a new voice. I don't think their head coach has been the issue. Like their defense has not been primarily that good this year. This game they actually played really well. Granted, you're playing against the Cowboys with a backup quarterback and no running game. You have one basically real time threat to try to take away, which is CD Lamb, who is kind of banged up right now. But props whereas props are due with the Cincinnati Bengals defense this year. They stepped up, they held the game. And then obviously the game ended kind of weird. It ends on a block punt. The Cowboys player touches it but doesn't recover it, and then the Bengals get it back. So it's then their ball. So it's kind of a weird ruling. It's really the first kind of break the Bengals have gotten all year. They're similar. They're kind of like the reverse Chiefs if you think about it. Like the Chiefs has gotten every single like stroke of luck they can get to win these games. They're super close, and the Bengals have lost every single game in similar ways. Only they're on the receiving end. So good for the Bengals for getting this win, getting some luck. Um, for all we know, this game could actually save some jobs, including Zach Taylor's. Obviously, Joe Burrow and those guys aren't going anywhere anytime soon if they're smart. Um, but yeah, it was an entertaining game overall. It wasn't super high scoring, just enough defense that all these positions or these possessions started to actually matter. Um, Joe Burrow, I thought played really well. Was still just been getting hammered all year. Like ended up putting on a brace halfway through or at the end of the game, just so you can protect that knee as much as possible. I'm very confused by the Cowboys. You could kind of tell that Mike McCarthy is trying to coach for his job. So I wouldn't be putting Cooper Rush in. Like I think at this point, um, whether you're all in on Dak or not, like Cooper Rush is not a full time starter in this league. He's a very high end backup, similar to like a Gardner Minshew kind of player. I would say Gardner is actually a little better in my opinion. Um, I would be putting Trey Lance in, but I think because he's coaching for his job still with the Cowboys and he knows it, he's keeping Trey on the sidelines. Like Trey was a D1 player, like all these guys to be honest, but also a top 3 draft pick. Like physical traits off the whiz out, but um you gotta get the guy playing time. Like for all you know, you got this Jordan Love kind of character that's been sitting and learning for the last couple years. I mean, he didn't look great in the preseason, but I mean, you're like if you're realistic about your team, the Cowboys aren't going anywhere. Like they're not a potential Super Bowl team. I think it actually hurts them if they make the playoffs. As crazy as that sounds, I think they need to re-add talent to their roster, and I think they're gonna have an easier time doing that if they're bad and towards the top end of the draft. And um, they're not going to be, Jerry Jones is not going to be willing to give up draft picks to go get high end players at the top of that draft or in free agency usually. Um, but yeah, you could tell Mike McCarthy is coaching for his job because he's coaching those positions carefully. I do think one thing that might come out of this might be a long shot, but I could see Micah starting to think like, get me the heck out of here. Like, I mean, it's gonna be tough to turn down the money, but everywhere in the league is gonna be willing to pay him top dollar because he is a top end pass rusher. Um, and he was visibly upset at the end of this game because of the way they lost and the year they've had. That it wouldn't put it past me to bet that he is going to go onto either Twitter, his podcast, it'd probably be his podcast or anything like that, and then be like, "I want out. Get me out of here. This is my last season in Dallas. I'm not re-signing. Don't franchise tag me. I won't sign it." Like I think we're nearing that territory. And honestly, that might not be the worst thing for the Cowboys because they're going to be so strapped for cash if they pay Dak, CD, and Micah that top end money that it could help. I mean, you'd get a slew of first rounders for Micah Parsons. I'd say 2 at the very minimum. I bet you could get 3 to 4. I bet 3 is probably where you go, or you do 2 and some reasonable starters kind of thing. Um, so I think that storm could be brewing because Mike is clearly an emotional player and rightfully so. Like no one wants to be in on a loser where the owner's talking all the time. And then the Bengals. I mean, I think that at the end of this year they're gonna have to address the defense in terms of players, and then I would probably sign a new DC. I mean, they've kind of started to play better towards the end of the year on the defensive side of the ball, but their offense has to carry them so aggressively that I think you're gonna have to look at the end of the year. And I would keep the head coach, um, unless Joe has secretly got a bunch of issues and really doesn't see the benefit of keeping him. I'd probably weigh in on his relationship with him. If it's not great, then maybe look at someone else. But I struggle to see a better candidate offensively, other than maybe like Ben Johnson from the Lions would be one to keep an eye on. Um, Outside of that, I've not seen a ton of options. Like, I mean, you could argue maybe Cliff Kingsbury, but he kind of seems like he wants to stay more of an offensive coordinator than a head coach, and that's fine. But I think you got to keep this crew together. I mean, we'll see how they deal with the Jamar and the T Higgins situation because if you lose one, it's going to be a little easier to take the other one away. But I think it's an interesting team dynamic heading into this offseason for the Bengals because they are the best terrible team that is probably in the league this year, arguably. And the Cowboys are the worst bad team. in the league as well. So teams going in completely different directions in the media. Even though one is clearly like, if you put the Bengals in the playoffs today, I think they could compete with any of them, just based off of quarterback play and receiver play. I don't see the Cowboys beating any of them. I don't. I think they get blown out by any reasonable playoff team. So, great win by the Bengals. Good for them. And Cowboys, you start looking at Trey Lance, baby. See what you got there. 'Cause I don't think Dak would be that much great either. They were losing with Dak too. But um, yeah, thanks for coming on this journey with me. And this has been the Sports Casual. Enjoy the rest of your evening.